So this is a screencast to show you guys what's the need for virtualenvs and what's going on with virtualenvwrapper and all those things. The idea is that the whole idea behind virtualenvs is related to the concept of dependencies. So your software will be built with several different dependencies, right? So you will be using a software library that other developer provided. So you could, for example, think about small libraries like, I don't know, a library to access a DNS service, or you can think as big libraries as, for example, a whole framework like Django or Flask. So the idea is that you will have different projects when you're developing, right? You're not always working just in one project. And the dependencies for those projects can change. So for example, you can have somehow old application that will be using Django in the version of 1.4, and you can have a newer project that will be using Django 1.7. So the idea is that you shouldn't make those libraries or dependencies conflict, right? The idea is that you would like to isolate them as much as you can. So that's the whole intention of having a virtual env. Have a virtual environment that will provide an isolated environment for you to have all your dependencies. So you can think about virtual envs as small silos that will have, each one will have different versions of any dependency. So for example, first of all, I always have things installed globally, right? So I have just here a shell in my computer, and I can just access Python in here. I can also access IPython. These are libraries that are installed globally. So for example, I can import requests. This is installed globally for every session in my computer, because what I want is to have it available all the time, because I use it a lot. But for some projects, I might need different versions of requests. So for example, let's see what I have here globally installed. As you can see here, requests is on version 2.2.1. This is globally. So let's create a virtual env and see how we can install a new library. So the difference between virtualenv and virtualenvwrapper are really easy. Virtualenvwrapper is just some tools on top of virtualenvs. Virtualenvs are like the bare bone solution. Virtualenvwrapper will provide some nice tooling. So for example, I can do mk virtualenv, which stands for make virtualenv, and give a name, and this is going to create my virtualenv for me. So I can see what I have here. I have almost nothing. So globally, I had requests. I have so much more things. These are all the things that I have on my global environment, and these are the things I have in my virtual env. So what I'm doing is just isolating this small environment. So you can see here that my shell, I'm using OMyC shell. When I'm inside a virtual env, it sets this tiny notice in here. This is also something from virtualenvwrapper. It's a nice tool. You could also know which virtual env you are at using, for example, a which command, and see which version of Python you're using. So what virtualenv will create, it's going to create a whole new environment. So even Python, the Python executable program will be contained in a different place, right? So when I write Python in here, what I'm running is this Python version located at this position. But when I'm in a global environment, when I run Python, I'm going to be running the system level Python, one installed globally, user bin Python. So this also creates an idea that I could, for example, create a virtual M with different versions of Python. I could create my virtual M using a PyPy version or Python 3 instead of Python 2. So if I'm in here and I type Python, I get Python 2.7. But if I create a virtual M, let's see. If I create a virtual M with Python 3.4, I can say that the Python executable I want is Python 3.4, and by default, when I hit Python here, you will see that I'm on Python 3, right? So each virtual M, this one and this one, will have everything or most of the things isolated, right? So even what I name Python per se will be different things. So when I say the Python executable, I will have this version, and when I say the Python executable here, I will have different things. Okay? So let's move on. What we can do with a virtual environment is just installing different libraries. So I'm going to install requests. As you can see, it's installed now. And the version I have from requests is different than what I had installed globally, right? So on my global system, I have .2.2, and on my virtual M requests, I have 2.5. Okay, so anytime I will be in this virtual M, these dependencies will be applied, and in different virtual M's I will have different dependencies. I will have different Python versions. So I can have like different environments for each project. So I can be working in a project that needs Python 2.6 and needs Django 1.2, for example, because it's really old, and I can have that here in the same PC that I have other project, a newer one using Python 3.4 and Django 1.7, for example. So that's the idea. Once you are in a virtual M, it's just easy as using it as you could use anything. So let's do something like touch hello.py. Hello world. So this script I just created was executed inside this virtual M. Ergo, it's going to be using the version of Python for this virtual M and all the dependencies for this virtual M. One more thing that should be noticed is that, I don't know if I have PyCharm. For example, on PyCharm, it's a while since I don't use this IDE. On all your IDEs in general, you will need to configure or to provide some configuration to let the IDE know which virtual M it have to use for each project. So PyCharm has the concept of projects. I'm working on the athlete project right here. And I can, let me see where. This is the project settings. I can, for example, Python project interpreter. I can set the configuration here to use the athlete virtual M. See? So for your IDE, you have to provide some sort of configuration, so it will use the settings from your actual virtual env in this case. I think that's it. It's a quick and dirty explanation. I don't have slides, I don't have anything, but I think it can be useful for all you guys. So one more thing for you to have this. virtualenv is actually included on Python 3 by default, and we were also talking about virtual wrapper. This is it. And I also told you that I'm using my C shell. This is it. And we also install requests. Awesome library. So you have some references. One last thing: requests, my C shell, virtualenvwrapper, virtualenv. One last thing I want to note is that almost every platform and language has some sort of virtual environment. So for example, on JavaScript with Node you have NVM that will allow you to have different isolated environments, and for Ruby I think you have bundler, yeah, I think this is it. So pretty much every platform has the need to separate dependencies and have different isolated environments. That's it. Thank you for listening.